I am going to start color mixing now. I have some colors on my other palette from the freezer, so I'm going to take some of the top colors there that you can see, and I'm going to just tell you what color I'm using as I put it on the palette, so then you can use the same colors if you want as me. I'll also put them in the description too, so then you can use the same palette as me. Okay, so we've got some titanium white here to start. And then for the reference photo, I think I'll also put, I'm thinking a little bit of, yeah, we'll use some of the yellow here. Got, oh no, try not to get other colors in it. Got some cadmium yellow here. Kind of got a little bit of green in there. I try to save a lot of my paints because paints are expensive, especially oil paints, and I want to get as much used out of it as I can so none of it goes to waste. I'm also going to take some of the cadmium orange that's on my palette still. I'll put that in because there's like a really nice orange section there. We'll also use some Cadmium Red Light. Nice bright colors. I like to try to make them bright, but keep some of the realism in as well. Try to match colors pretty exactly, except I bump up the saturation a little bit normally. So we've got the leaf there too, so we're definitely going to want, I like to use the Sap Green, and then I've also got, I'm going to have to grab some Cadmium Green as well, but the Sap Green will be nice for like the darker parts, and then the Cadmium Green. There we go. And then we've got some brown color in there. I think I have some burnt umber here. I will put some burnt umber for the stem there. That'll be an okay one to use. And then for the shadow, I don't like to use gray for the shadow. I like to add some sort of color in there. Trying to decide, I think I might want to do almost like a slight green shadow, so we'll have the green there. Trying to decide, I think the highlights are a bit blue actually, so I am going to add, yeah, I still have some blue on my palette here too. So we'll also add a little bit of the Cerulean Blue Hue. Now I'm using all Gamblin paints, but you can use whatever paints you would like. Yeah, I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so I think we're gonna start with the darker yellow part near the bottom of the fruit. It's got kind of some greens in it, so I'm gonna use a bit of Sap Green. And now what I'm doing when I'm mixing is I'm kind of tilting my palette knife to the side because you can kind of see there's an edge here, and I use this top edge to mix. Now we're doing this on a pretty small surface, so I don't need to mix a ton of paint, so I probably won't use all of this. That's why I always end up with like a little bit extra, and I try to just save the colors if I can. They last in the freezer for a few weeks anyway, I find. Okay, so this is a nice kind of yellowy green. It's a little too green. I want to desaturate it a little bit, and by doing a little bit of orange in there, it's gonna make it look a little bit more desaturated and realistic. Yeah, I like how that one's turning out. That looks really nice. So that is our first color. I'm gonna leave a little bit of the color on there so we can kind of add a little bit of yellow to it and gradually work our way up, because we want to make a lot of transition colors when doing anything that's realistic. As much as possible, you want to do most of the mixing on your palette when you're trying to go for something super realistic. I find if you're trying to mix it on the paper, then it doesn't turn out as you want. Okay, let's see how that looks after adding a little bit of yellow. Oh yeah, that's perfect. I like that. I'm gonna keep a little bit on there again. I want kind of an orange tone too, one that's a little bit more orange. I'm just gonna add orange. I actually recently just got this cadmium orange here. I mean, you could pretty much make that orange by adding, you know, the red and the yellow together, but it's nice to not have to mix all of the colors all the time. Okay, let me see. That will give us, I want a little bit more orange in that one. I also need a bit more yellow too. See how that turns out. When you're mixing colors, it's just a lot of playing around until you get the right colors and learning how to slowly pick out which colors are in an object. Really just takes time. And I've made a lot of colors which don't work out. Actually, I'm gonna put a little bit of green in there. Don't want to make it too close to that one. Wanted to make something like slightly brighter than that one. That was like kind of orange. Let me see. That one's not too close. Yeah, that one's slightly oranger. Still wanted a little bit more orange though. There we go. It's crazy when you look at anything in real life and you're just like, oh wow, there's so many colors in this. Be amazed just walking around and trying to pick out all the colors and everything. Just how much color is in our everyday life. That's what I love about painting. It makes you look at the world a little bit different. I'm probably actually going to need to put more yellow on my palette too. Now this kind of center area of the pear is a little bit more opaque and it's a lighter value, so you're going to want to add some white to this. Try not to add too much white because it try not to add too much white to all of your colors, because then you end up with like really desaturated colors, and I like to keep things really bright. It almost gives it like a chalky appearance if you put too much white. Okay, let's see if that's that's more of the middle tone there. I feel like we even could use a little bit of green in that. Take a little bit of the cadmium green there. Yeah, I like how that's turning out. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to keep a bit more of that. Do one that's even a little lighter. Almost making like a little bit of a gradient as we go down there. There's a decently bright highlight in the middle, and that's kind of a more blue highlight, so we'll mix the blue highlight next that goes there. Let's see, almost went a little too light there. Yeah, I could even add some green in that. There's more green in this one than I thought. Green is actually my favorite color, so I don't mind adding lots of green. Maybe add a bit more green even. Grab some more yellow from over here. Got the Cadmium Yellow light. Just add a bit more of that on the palette, because I'm sure we will need that for other parts. I use quite a bit of yellow, as you can see. Okay, not too much of that. Just gonna add. There we go. That's what we were looking for there. There, so now we have some really nice transitions there. We're gonna work on getting that highlight in now. Let me just pick up as much of this as I can. I'm gonna kind of work on I like to keep my surface as clean as possible. Look at that, we got a rainbow going on our cloth now. Normally just kind of wipe up the excess so we don't bleed any of those colors into our next color. Okay. Now when you're making like this is titanium white, but the titanium white I don't think is going to be the color we want. We definitely want that to go blue. So what I do is I like using just a little bit of the Cerulean Blue, like the smallest little amount. You don't want to add too much at a time because it is very pigmented, I find. Cerulean Blue is just so pretty. I remember when I added it to my my paints and I was like, I can make so many colors with this. It's just so pigmented and beautiful. It's a really nice addition if you don't have Cerulean Blue in your color palette yet. I tend to work off of the kind of CMYK color palette if you're familiar with the different types of color wheels, because you've got kind of the traditional color wheel you learn in school with your, primary colors. And then you've got the RGB one, which is more like computer based. And then I like to work with the CMYK, which tends to be used in like printing profiles and, the printer inks. And that's magenta, cyan, and yellow. And I find just sticking to those as my primaries makes for like really nice, bright, colorful paintings. Okay, let's check to see. Actually, we could use part of that, but I want to make one that's even a little bit more blue. So I'm going to take a little bit of that, put it up here, and I'm going to make one that's slightly more blue. Kind of in the center one there. Yeah, that's closer there. I'll make sure I get all of the pigment mixed, and just keep mixing until you don't see any streaks of pigment still left in there. There we go. And it's just slightly different. There's a slight shift in color there. Now, we shall start on this more like orangey area on the pear. Clean up this a little bit. Now I'm going to start out with a bit of the cadmium red and a bunch of yellow, because we're probably going to need a decent amount of that. Now, like I said, this is pretty much the orange in the middle. Look how close that is. Pretty close. Except we want this one a little bit more red. So we're going to do a bit of a gradient again, because you can see there's kind of some more red sections to that orange part, and then as you get closer it gets into that yellow section. So yeah, it could even be a bit more red than that. Now I'm painting a smaller one, but you can paint a bigger one if you would like to. I find that if I do bigger pieces, I tend to not finish what I'm doing because it takes me more than a few hours, and then I get bored of it, and I just forget about the project and then don't go back and do it again. It's my ADHD brain. If anyone has ADHD like me, I would recommend trying some small paintings, because you're more likely to finish it and feel more accomplished when you do finish a bunch of small paintings. Okay, let's see. I'm actually going to desaturate that a little bit with a bit of green. We're trying not to make like a bright orange. There we go. Desaturate that section. Let's see how that one turns out. Oh yeah, that's getting a little bit closer. And now in that one section, we've got kind of more of a saturated orange now. But we will be adding kind of like, there's more of a highlight in that area, but I'll show you guys how to do that on the painting as well. So while you're painting, you can kind of like slowly glaze the area with a little bit of white, and it tones down the color a little bit, because it's definitely not that bright on the fruit, but that's okay. We're going to add a bit of yellow now and slowly like work our way down in value. And I like to use yellow in this case instead of white to go down in value, just because yellow is lighter and lower in value anyway. And we like to keep the saturation at a good level, like I said. So let's see. Let's see if that's okay. Yeah, that's a nice one. Actually, I feel like we could even, you know what we didn't put on our palette that would be really good in this place is, didn't actually put any magenta, so I like to put the Quadradone Magenta on my palette too. Like I said, I like to use it as a primary color. It's got like this really beautiful, pretty pinkish feel to it, and I think a little bit of this in here actually will look nice. It's almost got this like deep pinky purple feel. Now in this reference photo, the background is white. I'm going to keep it white just to keep it simple, white like the paper that I'm using. But you could play around with colors and try something a little different in the background if you want. I'm actually going to add a little bit more of that. I've been playing around with background colors more instead of just keeping it white. Or I've been doing like really close-up ones, which have been fun too. Doing like a fruit series right now. Hence me wanting to paint more fruit, I guess. I just really like painting food because it's delicious and it makes me feel good when I paint it. Okay, yeah, that's looking pretty good. I'm gonna keep a little bit on my palette knife because we're going to keep toning that down with a little bit of yellow, a little bit of the magenta in there. And, oh yeah, that's looking pretty good. Hello, I've got a cat. Which you can't see. But there is a cat on my lap now. Hello, Mona. Please don't step on the palette. She's getting hair on it already. Is that her hair? No, that's just a scratch on there. They've been shedding a lot lately. Okay, I think we've got kind of that orange section done. And now we are going to move into, I think, this top section with the brown stem. I'm using this burnt umber over here. I think it'll be pretty good. And we'll lighten it with a little bit of yellow. I can tell the burnt umber is getting maybe a little bit old. It's been sitting in the fridge a little too long. Starts to take on a different texture. I'm actually going to add some red in there. Oh, maybe that was too much. Let's see. Let's see how that goes. Sometimes I get a little too carried away. Okay, let's see. Oh, that's looking pretty good, actually. Let me see. Oh, see, that's great. I could even add more red to that. I'm actually going to add a little bit of the magenta instead of red and see how that works out. Oh, hi, Mona. She's flopping. I'm mixing this right before their dinner time, so she's probably like, feed me. Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. Okay, I like that one. And I'm going to keep a little bit of that. Pretty much going to use this for like the darker area there. Going to do that for the darker area of that. And then we're just gonna take this and we're gonna lighten it up for the highlights on it. Just try to get as much of the paint off of there as we can. I love mixing on a glass palette. It's so therapeutic to just sit here, especially with a cat on my lap. Just mix colors. Now sometimes I actually mix colors the day before I paint. And I think that's what I'm going to do today because it is almost dinner time. Just decided this afternoon I was going to film my first video tutorial, so there we go. Yeah, now I got some of those lighter browns in it as well. As you can see, I like to make cute little piles here. I love the palette when there's like cute little piles on the side. Okay, and now we are going to work on the leaf. I don't want this color in the leaf colors, so I'm just going to clean that off a little bit. Here we go. Let me see what else we got there. So we will start with, I think, the Sap Green. We'll start with the darker values in the leaf. That's Sap Green. Ah, so pretty. Okay, now it's definitely not that dark, so we are going to lighten it with some of the cadmium. As you can see, there's a few little dry chunks. There we go. Let's see if that's pretty close. So that's pretty close to a few of the dark areas. I'm going to start a new row here. And I'm going to grab a little bit more. And take more of the cadmium green this time. Even more of the cadmium green. Really lighten it up in those other sections. Oh yeah. There we go, we're getting closer to the color we want. Let me just compare that now. So we've got, yeah, that looks really nice. Hi, Mona. I wonder if they can hear your purring, Mona. Is it picking up Mona purrs? Okay, I'm gonna add actually a little bit of yellow into it. Just to make it more of a yellowy green. See if I like that. I kind of like that for the veiny parts of the leaf. And then we've got, I'll take a little bit of the cadmium green, a little bit more of the sap green. I'm just gonna scrape a bunch of this off, put it onto the side there, and we're going to make more of the veining part, and it's a really, really light green. I'm just gonna slowly add little bits until it's the exact color that I want. Let's see if that's what we want. Oh, that's perfect. Okay, that's exactly what I wanted. Yeah, I didn't want to add too much of the green over here, especially when you're making a really light area. Okay, put that on my palette. Those look so good. Okay. Is there any other parts? Oh, I said I would do the shadow at the bottom. I was saying I want to do it green. Let me decide. I actually think I want to do that purple. I feel like purple would be really nice. Now there's a new tube of paint that I got. No, I won't use that. I did get this new manganese violet though. I gotta figure out where I want to use that in the painting. I'm just gonna grab the Ultramarine Blue. I'm gonna put that on the side. I wasn't planning on making purple. I would have put it on at the start. But I like to use Ultramarine Blue and a little bit of, where is it? Sorry, Monia. Okay, don't fall off of me now. I've got some Alizarin Crimson too, and this is what I like to make purple with. I feel like it makes a really pretty purple color. And it's nice and dark too, so we can fade it out in a shadow. Make the shadows colorful because it's fun that way. Okay, so let's clean off our area here. We've got this little bit of green left. Let's put that back over there. Back over there for now. Clean this little bit off there. There we go. Okay. And then we're going to take a little bit of this. Look at that blue. It's a really pretty blue to use for like the sky. Then we've got some really deep red color, Alizarin Crimson. But together, like these make such a beautiful color. Such a pretty purple. And so we'll use this for the shadow color. I'm going to put this darker kind of color really close to, hi Mona. I think she's leaving now. Okay, put that really close to the base of the fruit. And then we're going to just use little bits of this and add white to it. We'll get some transition colors. Look at that. Such a beautiful purple color. A bit more transition color. There. I will scoop that up. And then I'll grab this one. This will be kind of the next transition. Okay. Now we just got some extra purple. We'll put that in the pile there. And I like to clean off my palette. There we go. Let me look to see if there's anything else I want to make. I think we've got all of the highlight colors and stuff. I might actually make a slightly different brown than this for the dots. I don't know, I feel like we probably could use that, but there's a slight bit of green in the darker dots on the side. So we're just gonna kind of take a bit of green. I'm gonna take a bit of this brown that I made here. Bit of the cadmium as well, just to lighten up the value, because they're not quite this dark. Kind of had this mixed green there, so. And as you can see, as the dots get closer to the highlight, they get lighter too. So we want to make maybe some lighter dots as well. Let me see if this color is pretty good. Oh yeah, that looks good. So I'm going to add that in there. And then we'll make one more color too. A lighter one. Did I make it too light? Let me see. Definitely made it too light. I'll take one A bit of green. I need a bit more green in that. Because they're slightly more green than the stem is, these little dots. It's going to be similar to this one here, except a bit more green. I would say it's even a little bit darker. I'm going to add a bit of red in it. Well, not that much red. Put that off to the side. Take maybe a bit of this here. Let's see. I would say now we're just adding all the colors in. I mean, it is brown. You can kind of play around with brown a little bit. Okay, let me see how that's looking. I feel like we could even go a little bit more orangey red with that. A little bit of green. Okay. Just adding orange, red, and green until it's not so light. I think I just added too much white to it. So now I'm having to, that's what I said, not to add too much white, and I did it myself. That's looking pretty close though. Yeah, I think I like that. See how that's a little bit deeper than this kind of white there? That's why I wanted to make a different color. So I'm gonna put this over here. Didn't leave enough room beside it. Try to line up the paints in the order that I'm going to use them the best I can, so I don't forget which pigment I mixed for which part. Okay. Okay, there we go. And now that we've got all of those mixed, I think we can start on the painting. Now for you, it's going to be a few seconds, but for me, I don't think I'm going to paint till tomorrow unless I get the motivation after dinner to paint. So we will see you for a nice, chill, relaxing painting session now. Okay guys, we are going to start the painting now. Got everything set up. It is the next day. Sometimes I like to mix paint the next day like I was saying. And I've got all of like my cameras and stuff set up. I'm gonna work on, so I've got this little gummy eraser. I've already done like a really brief sketch, but I've got this gummy eraser here. And I use this to take off a little bit of the graphite from my sketch, because if I leave too much, especially in yellow paint, since it's a bit transparent, it shows through, or like the graphite blends with the colors. So I try to take off as much as I can so you can just kind of see enough of the sketch that I can have an outline. Now with this one, I'm not painting like a background on it, so I want to get as much of this off as I can. You're just gonna hear me making a bunch of sounds throughout this whole thing. I tend to make funny noises and listen to music. I've got my headphones in, just listening to some music along the way. I think that's like starting to look pretty good. Okay. And now it's hard to see, but that's okay. Okay, also trying to film like a short at the same time. I've got like my phone here trying to film it. Trying to do more shorts because I know that it's nice on a lot of the platforms now to have shorts content. Okay, so I'm gonna start in with, I think I'm gonna use maybe this brush first, just to block in a lot of the colors. So what I like to do is do a really, really thin layer around the whole fruit with just this like flat brush. And I like to use the Princeton Velvet Touch ones. I find they have really soft bristles. And I also find I don't have to clean them every day either. Because of the soft bristles, they retain their shape pretty nicely. Now I just have like a little cloth over here that I'm dabbing this off on as I'm painting too, because got this little, you can see on my palette here, I've put a little bit of linseed oil in a container. I just call it my cleaning oil, and I'll dip my brush in here and just dab it off on the little cloth to clean it in between colors, just to take off as much color as I can. Oh wow, it's really windy outside. Hope you guys can't hear that too much. Okay, so we've got, I would say in the bottom section of the reference there, I'm gonna start with this color. Gotta remember where I mixed the colors from yesterday. Okay. We've got, you're just gonna get a little play-by-play of everything that I'm doing. So I like to get a little bit there. Yeah, that looks pretty accurate. That's a pretty accurate color. And I don't want to put too much on. I know a lot of other oil painters, they tend to say like, oh, you don't want to be glopping on, or that you want to be glopping on the paint. And in my technique, I don't glop on the paint because I find building it up in very small layers helps with making it look a little bit more realistic, especially on the paper. So I'm just building up the layers really slowly. This bottom section's actually like a little bit darker, so I might come in here with a slightly deeper color, maybe near the end. But for now, we're using this one to do. This area is kind of similar. And I'll kind of clean up the edges of the fruit at the end, but I'm just getting the general shape of where I want it right now. And I don't want to go up too high because this is kind of a more orange part here. Some of the dark color into this bottom section too. It looks like there's a little bit of the deep color on this side too. Because I think the light source is kind of coming in from like over here, but up near the top a bit more. So you've got kind of a shadow going on here. That's why the shadow is very low, because it's kind of coming from the top a bit. I like to pick that out while I'm painting where the light source is coming from. Because then you have a general idea of where the darker values will be in your subject. So that looks pretty good, I think, for the dark area. I would even say there's a little bit of dark here too. Yeah, I don't want to go too much into there. So that's the first section. Now we're going to take some of this transition color here. This one's slightly brighter here. And we're going to put it in the next area. And I like to just blend it a little bit into the last color that we were using. I've got the transition color again. Just making sure all of my stuff is recording still. I feel like for the first few tutorials, I'm gonna be looking at all of my stuff to make sure everything is recording properly. Because that's the worst, is when you go to look at it and you're like, oh no, I forgot to press record. Okay. Starting to see a slight transition there. Bring this color up into here a bit more. Grab a little bit more of that. Transition color kind of comes up into this section. Not too high though, because we've actually got a highlight coming in over here a bit in the reference photo. And now I'm going to go back to this color a bit and add a little bit more. So we're going to start filling out the color a little bit and blending it on the line. There's not really reason, I guess, that I'm starting in this section. You could also start with the leaf or the stem if you wanted, but I like to start on the main subject. You do want to start out with the darker colors first though, in your subject, like the darker values, because I was saying in the paint mixing that it's harder to lighten, or it's harder to darken an area once you've got it too light. Okay. It's blending pretty well. Now we're gonna bring in, I think, this slight orange color now. And it's just kind of in this area over here on the edge. And it's the transition color between the really darker, like red here. So I'm not gonna go too crazy with this one, but I want to blend it into these other colors a little bit. It's just on this one side, so I don't have to put too much. Say it's on this area a little bit. I might even add a bit more of that one. It's a little darker on this section. Looking pretty good there. Now I want to work in the orange section a little bit, so I am gonna dip my brush in here and clean off the lighter color a bit. Okay. There we go. Just so it's clean a little bit, you don't need it too crazy. I'm gonna grab the darker color here and we'll slowly transition from this section kind of near the top. I'm gonna go over here. The darkest area I would say is like here. ish into here a bit, and it almost like curves around the fruit a little bit. So you want to look at where those curves and the lines are, and it comes around here a bit too. Now we're gonna have to put a little bit of a highlight over here at some point, but it's a very light highlight, so we can actually just cover up this area and then add the white in later on, because we should be able to lighten this color pretty easily later on. Now we're gonna need to work on a transition there, so I'm gonna go into the next color and get that next tone. You can kind of see how it's just slightly different. I made the tone just a little different there. And then go in with this one, which will give us our next color. Now, I like to use some of my older brushes for these sections. I kind of left some paint on that one. I'll go to the other one. This one will be pretty good. So I have this one that's a little bit ruined on the tip, and all I do is I just take it and use it as like a little bit of blender, a blending motion. That'll help to kind of bring the colors together. Just where you see the transitions. You don't want to go too crazy. It's okay to have a little bit of that color blend. I'm just dipping it on my thing to take off a little bit of the color so you don't end up with too much color on your brush. On the blending brush, you don't want too much color like ending up on here, so I just dab it on my cloth. There, that color transition is looking pretty good now. Yeah, I like that. That orange is really pretty. I'm gonna put that brush back there, and then we will work on bringing some of the transition up into this section now. So I'm gonna grab this transition color again. We're gonna bring it up into the top. And it comes out a little bit here, but this part actually gets a little lighter, so we don't want to bring the transition up that far. Same with this section. Okay, I'll brush that off a bit, and then we're gonna work on getting this lighter value as well in there. Okay, we'll work that up into the top section. And this part is more yellow, kind of into here. The yellowy orange, so I'm going to bring the yellowy orange back into that section. There's just a lot of like looking at the reference photo and then looking back at what I'm doing and comparing. So a bit more of this, I think, up here. I'm going to bring this color up here. Blend it here, getting that sharper edge on the side. And I'm gonna get this color because that's the nice transition color between, yeah, there's the good transition there. And then we'll come back in with the blender brush after I get kind of these on. Nice thing about oil paints is they don't dry very quickly, so you can blend for quite a while. So I can add all of these transitions in and then go back if I want. I this is kind of where I wanted the highlight, so I don't want to go into that too much. I'm going to keep the highlight just white there. Okay. I'm going to grab my blender again. Blend this out. Try to lighten this area a little bit. Bring some of this color into the darker areas. See if you kind of bring that color in, it lightens those darker sections. There we go. Really nice transition in that section now. Okay, now we're gonna go back to that yellowish green color and we're gonna bring it into some of these areas here. I'm gonna clean off my brush so we don't get orange in that section. We definitely don't want orange in the green section. Clean that off. Just gonna take my cloth off of there so I'm not shaking the easel on you guys. I love these small little brushes, they're great. Here, I guess I can do this in frame if you guys want to see. So I'm just kind of dipping it in and then I'm dabbing it off a little bit. Nothing crazy. Okay, so we're gonna go back in with, we were kind of at this transition color here. We had this one. I would say we're gonna need to go with this one again near the top area here. So put that in there. Just slowly blend that in there. Normally listen to some music in my headphones. What do you guys like to listen to while you paint? I tend to listen to like a chill playlist, or my sometimes I put on my pop punk emo playlist from the 90s. To jam out to that. Okay, we're gonna add this here a little bit. Almost blend it on an angle. Okay. And now we're gonna add some of these lighter sections here. So we've got some lighter sections, which is this color here. So I'm gonna grab, that is quite a bit lighter than the other color, and you can tell it's a bit more saturated too. It's got more of the yellow tones in it, which is exactly what we want in this section around the highlighted area. We'll have to come in and take our blender in there again too. After I apply more of this color, we're getting a base layer on first. That looks nice. Bring the lighter color up the edge too. There's quite a bit of like highlights in here that will probably add a bit more white. That'll be near the end. And I'm going to come in with a bit of this up here too. Now, I want to do this carefully around the highlights. I'm going to probably bring in the lowest one that I've got there, the super bright second. So I'm going to clean off my brush a bit. Okay. Take this guy here, and that's the lightest area, just around. You can see it's just a little bit lighter. We'll keep those highlights decently white there. Coming together slowly. We're gonna grab the blender again because that'll help us these areas. I gotta clean off the blender a bit because it's got some orange in it. You don't want orange in these sections. It's really important to clean off your brush in these color changes because we definitely don't want any pigment bleeding, and especially with the professional like oil paints like Gamblin, they're super pigmented, and even if you just get a little bit in it, it'll change your color profile completely. You want to get as much as you can off. Okay, there we go. So we're going to come in here. I'm just going to blend around this area here. Blend this into this bottom section here. Take that off. Actually add a little bit of this deeper color. So I put the deeper color on my blender, blending a bit more color into these sections now. So you can see, just to add a bit more shadow in this area. I felt like we brought the lighter color down a little bit too much, so adjust it a little bit. So I'll go into that deeper color again. Just add a bit more of it. That's why we want to add little bits at a time, so we can maybe adjust the colors a little bit if we need to. And we are going to be coming back in to put all of the dots on the pear too, to give it all those little realistic dots. So we want to make this layer pretty thin so it's easy enough to come in with the dots there. Add a bit more shadowy area here. Blend this out a bit. Now we're going to work on those highlights there in the middle. So I'm going to get a really clean brush. Let me see. Gotta find, there we go. Put these two down. I think I need to clean this off a bit. I probably should have cleaned all my brushes before this. It's okay. No, it doesn't look like it has too much pigment in it from the last session. I think I got it all out. So I've got this brush here. This is another Princeton round brush. That's the size that I'm using there. 3/0. And this one I use quite a bit. It's kind of got a bit of a interesting tip. Some of the round tips don't always stay round. But we're going to use this for the highlighted area. And I wanted to use these two colors for the highlights. I'm going to start out, I think, with this highlight color. And then we've got the more blue one up there. We'll start out with this color here. We're going to don't want to move that too much in there. I'm going to grab my blender at the same time. I'm going to blend some of this lighter color into it. I'm going to grab some of this one here. I'm just going to start layering on a little bit more pigment in this section. I feel like we need this kind of slightly darker one here. I'm going to break up this highlight and make it look a little bit more natural. Slowly blend it out into that. I can actually grab a little bit of this top color here. Around in that area. Okay. Got kind of a deeper color there. I think I actually want to bring in this lighter one again. Blend this out so the highlight isn't too bright. I'm actually going to bring in, where is it? A little bit more of this one. I feel like I want to bring it up into this area a little bit more. Take away some of this orangey color. I feel like we maybe added a little too much orange in that one area. So I'm just taking that out a little bit. It's the nice thing, you can kind of lighten that area. Just a slight bit. Bring out that orange. Just to give it a little bit of shape. I'm almost kind of like bringing the color down a little bit here. I want to give shape to it, and you can kind of see the shape slowly starting to come together. I'm going to make this area slightly deeper actually. I had mixed some brown over here for the stem, and I think we could actually use a little bit of this burnt umber with a little bit of that shade. Maybe get a slightly deeper area. I think if I bring that into this section, yeah, it might actually help. Because we've got a slightly darker area of the fruit over here. Just on like the edge and the darkest part, the values needed to come down a bit more. You can see by blending that out, we're getting there with the value on that section. Yeah, it definitely needed that. Might even bring some of this brown up into this edge here, into the orange. And that's just gonna create that round shape. Okay. And I'm just using really light brush strokes while I'm doing that, because I really don't want to add a ton of pigment. But you can just tell that it's slightly darker in these sections. It's making it look a little bit more realistic now. Adding that dark shade in adds a bit of depth to it too, I find, when you add colors over top of another one, because you can kind of see the original color down there. Pressing a little harder here just to get a bit more pigment off my brush. How's that looking? I feel like we could bring it up into here a bit more. More here. There we go. I could even bring a little bit of the brown in this section too. Just a little bit of shadow there. I could use it. Way down here in this bottom section. Okay, now that we've got that, could add a little bit of brown to this section here. This will create some really nice depth in the orange color there. Definitely need it slightly darker here. There. Looking a bit more realistic now with that extra depth we added. Now that we're kind of done the main base of the fruit, yeah, we're pretty good on the main base of the fruit now, I would say. And we're gonna go up and work on the leaf. Now let's do the stem. Okay, I'm gonna grab a different brush. Probably go back to this brush here that I was using. This one, yeah. Slightly smaller one. Just cleaning it off, make sure all the pigment's out. Okay, let's see. We're gonna start with the deeper color here. Actually could use a little bit of oil in it, so if you find your paints aren't quite coming off enough, you can dip your brush in some of the linseed oil, make it a little more flowy. Okay, I'm gonna add this darker part on this section down here. A little bit on the side there up to the top, so we're only adding a little bit at a time. There is a little bit of a shadow underneath this section too because the light's coming from above. Okay, brush that off a bit, and then we will work on this slightly lighter color here. And we'll add the highlight last on this stem with a really fine brush, but for now this will be good. So I'm adding the slightly darker one beside. Could have almost used a smaller brush for this. It's very tiny. Okay, then we're going to add the slightly lighter color. Just a little bit on this edge here. I'm going to add some to the top. I want to be careful while I'm applying it so it doesn't get to the dark sections too much. I want to make this a bit more curved around here. Looking pretty good. I will show you the detail brush that I have so we can add the highlight. So I have this liner brush by Princeton again. It's a 20/0 size one. And it is great for adding highlights. I think I will use, it's not quite that bright. It's almost like a mix between this one and a little bit of this. Look at that. Mix a new color on the side there. I'm gonna add a little bit of oil to it so it blends nicely for us. A bit more of that. There we go. Mix that. And we will put this, the highlight is kind of going right down here. Down that section. We could even make that a little brighter. Okay, it's going right down this kind of center part there. Try to keep your hand as steady as you can anyway. I like to keep my hand steady by just like putting it on the edge. I use my finger and I slowly move it down. I kind of want a slightly brighter highlight there in the top area. There we go. And then there's some brighter highlights up in this top section here. On that. Yeah. There we go. That looks pretty good. Yeah. And I would say that we could use a little bit more of this color on the edge here. Just because I got it a little too light in that one section. Darken it a little bit just so there's a bit more. There we go. Yeah. And now I normally just blend with this little brush kind of along the edges as much as you can. Try to blend anyway. There's only so much blending you can do in such a small section like that. So just do your best. I'm gonna try to get this green section done now. Green section being the leaf. Okay. Just cleaning off my brush. It's still kind of got a decent amount of yellow on it, which isn't horrible with the green paint we're going to be using, but let's see what we can do. It's weird that the camera stopped there. Okay. I am going to use the darker green first, so we're going to do the shadow areas on the leaf. Okay. I'm going to take this part. There's a bit of a shadow there on this section. Just trying to get on the edges too, best I can. And then we'll come back in after and add all of the little lines. But for now, I'm just getting the base color down. So the darker part is this section, and then it goes into like a lighter part into here. Just a slight lighter part. And then there's also a dark part almost in this section over here. And this part is kind of the swoop. It's a different color on the bottom of the leaf. Everything is running out of space. Even my phone is running out of space. Let me see if I can get storage. I need to free up space. There we go. Free up space on my phone. I feel like I'm always running out of space with how many videos I create all the time. Okay, we're gonna go into the next transition color here, and I'm just gonna add that in. Actually, I want to add a bit more of the darker color in this section. There's almost like a jaggedy edge on the leaf too, so I can come up and like maybe jagged edge this section. Oh, there's a bit of a hair there. Well, I guess I'm not getting rid of that. Bring these lines up in this direction. They're kind of going in pattern to the side. We're going to grab a bit more of the transition color. A little bit more of this one. These ones are a bit smaller, the little jagged edges. And they're not really even, so you don't have to worry about making them super even or anything, the jagged lines. A lot of things in nature aren't perfect, so it's fine if you make a bunch of mistakes. It's kind of the fun part of art, is you can make things look slightly different than the picture. Like, we don't have to make it exactly like it looks like in the picture. If you don't want, I do that with some of my plein air painting. When I've went out, I'm like, I don't really want that in the image, and I'll take out a whole tree in like one area, you know? You never really have to do exactly if it doesn't work in your composition that you want. If something doesn't look good to you, just don't add it. Okay. The jagged lines are almost going this way. I gotta add a little bit more paint. Okay, that's looking pretty good. And we got a like nice transition to the lighter green there. And I would say that we got some of this coming down here. Not a lot though. Most of it is like a lighter stem color, so you only want it going down the stem a little bit. And the rest will be that slightly lighter color, because we've got this color here. So I'm going to add those light bright parts now. So we've got one section here on the leaf. That's this lighter green color. And we gotta add like the jagged lines into this section too, to show that it's the leaf kind of folded over. I'm gonna add some of these jagged lines. And then we're gonna add that bottom part there. And then it's slowly coming together there. Go. Might actually add a few more little jagged parts here. And the lighter part kind of comes up into this area a little bit. That's a bit better. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of this on the stem as well, because like I said, it kind of almost comes down and around in this area. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna grab the really thin one for this. So we were using it for brown, so I'm going to clean it a bit before we go ahead and use it on this lighter green. But I'm going to make all of the lines in here with the lighter green. I might even go in first with a slightly brighter green, this one here, to just mark where the lines are going to be. And then we can always go in with the lighter one if we want to. Okay, got this nice bright green to go in with now. So this line kind of comes up and around here, this area. And then we've got this that kind of comes up and around. Okay, here's the next one. Just kind of looking at the pattern, I can kind of draw this middle line too on the leaf. It comes up and around into this middle tip section. And then we've got some really light little lines in here. We also have this line. And this one here. Also gonna connect this line out. That gives us a slight variation. I think I made that line too thick. And if you do that, you can just grab your brush, one that doesn't have stuff on it. Oh yeah, that definitely has white on it. Let me just wipe my hands off. Grab the brush right on the tip. Okay, we've got this darker green color here. I'm gonna grab a little bit of that. And all I'm doing is just gonna fix up that line that I made way too bright. There we go. Tone it down a bit. But now we've got kind of our general lines of where I want them. I'm gonna come in with the more bright green color. This color here. And we will slowly add this in. I'm going to try to do it as lightly as I can. I really don't want these lines big. I'm going to grab just that middle line there. There we go. It's very, very small. The brushes definitely matter in the case like this. It's hard to use bigger brushes, so I would definitely say if you're gonna do small paintings like me, invest in these super tiny brushes. They're so helpful. Okay. And then we've also got that one. And a slight one here. And there's kind of some, I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's a few little kind of lines coming off the top, so they don't go straight to the end by themselves. It's more veiny in this one. I'm just adding veins around the end just to add that texture. I'm gonna come back in with this one. I made this line a little too thick. There we go. And now I need a little bit of veininess in this bottom section, but it's definitely a slightly darker vein color. So I'm gonna go ahead and just dip my brush in that green. Adding some texture in that area with a slightly different color. Darker one. There we go. That leaf is looking pretty nice. I think we'll go back to the pear on the bottom now. And we will start to add some more texture into the pear. So we've got all of these kind of highlights. I'm gonna add the highlighted sections first. In this area, there's a bit of highlights. And then along the top, we've got some more darker sections and highlights to add a bit more depth to the top there. So I think I will use my little blendy one. Okay, let me get the blended one there. And I'm gonna dip it in kind of maybe this color here. I want to add a bit of texture here. I've noticed that the orange color kind of comes into this yellow a bit more. Yeah. I think it's what gives it a bit more shape in this section. And it's almost a little bit dark right here between the highlight. So I'm actually going to take my really fine liner one, clean that off from the other color we were using. Clearly I need to get more fine liners so I don't have to keep cleaning them off. They're so handy. I just recently got this super fine liner and I like it a lot. I think I'm gonna go with this color here, and I'm just adding it to this area. Here and blend the orange out a bit. And I'm gonna blend this darker color in there. You can see it start to take shape in this one section now. Smoothing out some of these edges here. I'm still going to go back in and smooth out the edges as well. Okay, what do we got? Should have another fine liner in here. Okay, we've got this other fine liner here. This is a Princeton liner brush as well. This is the 10/01. And I think this will be okay for like adding the highlights in this section. So there's a bit of this highlight in that section there. Got kind of a highlight coming in to this area here. Bring the highlight along the edge. And I'm going to use my blender brush. Blend out along the highlight. Actually going to bring a bit of highlight into the middle section at the top of Pear as well. So I'm just going to clean off my blender and dip that into the white. And that created a bit more color in that top section there. I need a different brush. Let me see. Also got some highlights in this top section here. So I'm just trying to pick out where all of the highlights are. And then I'm slowly just adding them in, because the highlights are what's gonna really give it that realistic feel. So you want to make sure you're placing the highlights in a good area. I think I'm actually going to go grab some more titanium white to put on the palette, because I think I want actually some titanium white directly on there. Where did it go? Oh, I have it over here. Convenient. Try to put it on the palette so you guys can see me dipping into it to this section. Do. Crusty bit. Put that over there. Okay. So we've got this white. This is a really bright white now. So we don't want to go too crazy with it. But I really want these ones to stand out a little bit more. And same with these ones in the middle. Going to take my blender brush again. Gonna bring the color up into here. Highlight in there. A little bit more on my brush there. And this highlight starts to kind of go down the edge here. And there's a slight bit of highlight in this area. And by highlight, I mean kind of a reflection. So it's like reflecting off of something. You can tell it's a reflection because it's a shiny surface. So it's just picking up a bit more of the light in these sections. And we don't want to put too much in this section because it's not like a bright white highlight. But if we really get into these like reflections, this is what'll make it look realistic too. And then there's a bit more reflection kind of in this area. I want a bit of a blender on the edge here, I think. This is doing okay. I'll just play around with brushes too to see which ones you like using the best to get the results you want, because there's a lot of different types of brushes you can use. Up a little bit. I'm just blending with this brush now. Not what I meant to do. There we go. Gotta blend that out a bit. I think some of these highlights are not quite where I want them to be. And now, I like to kind of stand back from the painting a little bit here and there. I step back here and there just to like see what I'm doing. Now we want to add some highlights along the edge here where the light's coming from. Just gonna clean this off. I got a bit of red on the tip by accident. Start adding the highlight in here. I don't want to get, almost got it too much into the ferrule there. That's one thing with your paintbrushes, they will last longer if you don't get paint like up into this ferrule area here. If you get it too into there, it'll start messing with the glues and stuff that hold your bristles together. And that part is called the ferrule, so that's what I'm talking about. You definitely don't want it to get up into that area if you can help it. And I got it a little too close, so I'll definitely have to wash this brush out thoroughly after. Just so nothing gets stuck up in there. As soon as you start getting paint stuck up in there, then you end up having like the bristles like splitting and splaying on the ends. There we go, that highlight's looking pretty good on the side. Add a little bit more. Bit more. Just adding little bits at a time so I don't add too much. Okay. And then we're gonna go back in to this and get some little speckles or spots on this. I noticed that there's also a bit of a highlight here on the edge here. Just gonna blend in a little bit. It's not a super bright highlight. It's more of a reflection. And is there anywhere else? There's a bit more up here. And me stare at that from a distance. I think honestly we could add a bit more orange in here. I think we kind of a little too crazy with the lighter yellow. Is it this one? Yeah. We'll bring a little bit of this into here. I'm gonna bring a bit of this orange down into this area here. Want to bring it too much down in that area. Okay, let me see. I'm even gonna bring a little bit of the orange up here. There's actually a bit more highlight up there. I'm just gonna grab the highlight. We're getting there. Just gonna mess around with this a little bit longer. Really work on this highlight in the corner. Doesn't look too bad there now. Okay, I think we're pretty good there now. We can start adding in some of these little dots. Which one should we use? I think we should use the really tiny one for the dots. My 20/0 And we said we were going to make, so if you can see in the picture, the dots near the highlights here are a little bit lighter in value, and these ones are definitely darker, so we're gonna work with that. We'll start with the dark ones and slowly work our way in from the outside of the pear in, and we'll try to get the hang of this. I'm not sure. Okay, so we'll get this really dark color first. I'm getting it on the edge. Okay. Don't want too much on my brush there. Might even blend it into this a bit because I feel like that's gonna actually be too dark. Okay, we'll see. Let's just hope for the best, I guess. Okay, so I'm gonna start, I think, down in here in case I don't like the dots. just gonna make little dots, and I'm not gonna really place them like too close together. Now we can decide that this pear maybe that we're making doesn't have as many dots as the original one, so we don't have to do too many dots. But I think they're looking pretty good. Some of the dots are perfect. They're like, some of them are getting lighter as we go into the middle anyway. How many dots we got there? We got kind of some darker dots in this area. Dots aren't showing up as much because they're in the highlight. And then as we get over here more, I think I'll go into like this lighter color a bit. Mix it with this. Let's see how that looks. It's almost still too dark. I'll keep it in this area down here. I'm gonna add a bit of oil to that. I feel like it doesn't need to be so strong. There we go. Make sure I'm not, I might actually like come in with my blender brush after to try to make those dots. Let me see, let me get some of the red out of that. Ready orange color. If I come in and kind of like tap the dots, I think it'll be okay. Oh yeah. Kind of lightens them up a bit, so that works, because we don't want these super dark. the dots into this top section. They're kind of becoming more sporadic as we go up. I'm gonna keep tapping them with this to lighten it, because I really don't need them that dark. It's just to add texture in. Hopefully we didn't make some of them too dark. I'm gonna keep the light areas like a little bit more dot free. It's harder to see the dots when you get to this center section. I need more dots in this section. See. I hope everything's still filming, it seems. I don't know what that glitch was earlier with the paint mixing camera. Let's see. And then we're gonna have to add a shadow down here. And I said I was gonna make it purple because purple shadows are more fun to make than gray shadows. Even though obviously that's not like super realistic, but it's okay. Shadows are never like fully like black or anything. Gotta have some color variation in there. Orange in this section at the bottom. I mean, that's looking pretty good there. Could probably add a few more dots in this section. Just a few more dots there help. I'll lighten those with the brush. Looking pretty good there. Okay. And now I'm gonna add a few extra dots to the top. Looks like a few are needed up here. Area. Okay, those are looking good. Don't know. Okay. And now we will work on the shadow. I'm gonna clean up this brush here. I'm going to use the Chisel blender brush. I find they're really good for shadows. But it's really dirty, so like what I'm doing to clean it off, like that again. Just trying to get as much pigment off as I can because I don't want that to blend into the nice purple color. The purple is gonna just, as soon as you start adding shadows in, it really adds dimension to the whole fruit. And shadows are really important to get like pretty accurate. Now this shadow, like I was saying, it's not like super huge. It doesn't go off to the side or anything because the light is kind of coming in from an angle. So we're gonna keep the darkest parts like right underneath the fruit there. So I'm gonna dip my brush into here, into this deeper purple. We're gonna kind of just go underneath the fruit. Don't wanna, okay, let's see. And I'm gonna grab my little blender. Bring the fruit edge into the purple a little bit. And just blend it slowly. We'll slowly bring this down into these areas here. Okay. Looks like got kind of a curve over here. I'm gonna brush a little bit of that off, and then we're gonna look at the next transition color that I created, which is this purple here. Just gonna add it to the sides a little bit. We're gonna blend this out really slowly. I might even take one of my liner brushes or my like smaller detail brushes. Now we're gonna go into the next transition color. I want this just on the edge a little bit. And then in order to get a transition between the paper that I'm using and this, is I'm actually just gonna go straight into like titanium white, but I'm not gonna do it with my brush here. I'm gonna grab my liner brush here. I'm gonna take that. I'm going to clean it off a little because it has the highlight color in it. And we're going to use the titanium white to kind of blend it into. Just going to put it on the tip of it. And as I put it on the side here, have to brush it off a few times so we don't get the color out too far. I'm trying to bring the color out just a little bit. This highlighted, or this shadow is really small. I'm even going to get rid of some of the really dark parts even. And I'm just blending it out with this. I'm going to dip it in the white again. I've got this bottom part here. I'm gonna blend this a bit more. In this bottom section here. Getting close. More of this. Okay. And now I'm gonna find, I think I have, I'm trying to find an angle brush that will work. This will work, I think, okay. I think there's a bit of pigment in that though. Let me clean out this purple one that I was using. Don't want any pigment left in this though while I'm doing this. So I'm not gonna rush this. I'm gonna do this right. Takes quite a few dips into the cleaning oil in order to get it fully out because I want the edges to be really blended. It's looking pretty good now. Okay, I'm gonna put a little bit of color in there. And I'm dipping off the color a little bit just so there's just a slight bit in there. And I'm gonna hit the edges with this. Hitting the inside edges a bit more. I'm gonna wipe it off, put it back in some white, and wipe it off again. Just a lot of wiping off your brush to get this section looking nice, or else you'll end up making it too big down here. It in there, there. After you're done messing around with this for like 20 minutes, I'm just kidding. Then we will be looking back at our photo and seeing if there's anything that like really stands out. You definitely want to stand back from it and get a full look at everything, just to see if there's anything that you can really pick out that might be missing. Sometimes a few days later I'll see something and I'll be like, maybe I want to add a little bit of this. I try not to touch things after they're done though, because just leave them how they are as you saw them at the time. Oh, that's looking like a really nice little shadow there. I don't want to do too much more than that. It's not exactly like the picture. I think I might add like just a little bit. I'm gonna grab my other really small one. I'm gonna dip it in to this darker color here. And I'm gonna make it over here a bit. I feel like it could use it over here a bit. Just to add some dimension to these parts. Not too much, but make them look like they have little bumps on them. Okay, I'm just trying to decide how I want to blend this, so you can kind of see that it's almost going up on the bottom of the fruit. There we go. I'm gonna add a little bit of that there. Same with over here. Off of this area, and see how we're just kind of shaping the bottom however we like it, whatever we feel kind of works. And then I'm blending it into the fruit here a little bit at the bottom. So you're bringing the purple almost up into the yellowy green of the fruit. There, that's looking pretty good. Yeah, I like that. Okay. I'm going to step back for a second and we will decide what we think of that. Okay. I'm liking how that looks. I thought about adding more detail into the leaf, but honestly I kind of like it simple. Sometimes I don't go like super duper realistic, and I like to add a bit of painterliness in it. And I think that's giving off the effect that I was looking for. Okay, well, I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed the tutorial today, and tag me on like Instagram or Facebook at Megan Jossel Art if you end up trying out this tutorial. I'd love to see your guys's versions of this. And yeah, I will probably post this one up on my website if you want to buy the original tutorial painting. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. So bye.